Alright, let's talk about the year 1977. I watched 39 movies from this year. I only had seen 3 before prepping for this video. Was not very familiar with this year, and watching all 39 of these movies, I can tell you that this year is not as good as 78 or 79. This one was just fine. Like, there's not a lot of movies I love from this year. My number one is the only movie I love from 1977. The rest were okay, good, and there's some shit ones as well that I'll be talking about. But yeah, 39 movies, and I'm going to give you, of course, my top 10, 3 honorable mentions, and 3 dishonorable mentions. This was the year of nature horror movies. There's a lot of killer animals and insects, stuff like that, and a lot of TV films as well. So let's get into my 3 dishonorable mentions, the 3 shitty ones. Let's get this over with. The bottom, of course, being Snow Beast, a made-for-TV, Jaws-inspired, tame, uneventful snooze fest. The pace drags in the middle, and there's just tons of montages of people skiing on this mountain for way too long. Every kill is a cutaway kill because it's made for TV, and there's a scene at like this festival or carnival where all these people could have been attacked and killed, but instead the beast scares them and then runs away to go attack a woman in a car instead. And this snow beast, we only catch a glimpse of his face for only half a second in the entire runtime. The rest of it is POV shots and like footprints that it's making in the snow, and they just have it growling constantly, like on loop. It's just so annoying. This movie has fade to red transitions like The Burning that are very cheesy. This movie does have kind of a cheesiness to it that I like, but yeah, there's not much else to like. I like Bo Svensson in the movie. He's done a lot of horror movies, and he's a good actor. But the third act is just so anticlimactic. The guy, Bo, he just stabs the snow beast with like a ski pole, and then it falls down a hill. The end. Next up is a cheesy gimmick movie, like a lot of movies nowadays, where it's like, what's gonna kill people now? A tire, or a pair of pants, or a couch. It's called Deathbed. This is a dreadful movie that has a cheesy, fun concept that, in the right hands, could have been entertaining, but this script is terrible. Most of the dialogue in this movie is just people's narration, a bunch of exposition, and just people's thoughts, no actual, like, spoken dialogue from the characters in conversations. You do get some nudity in this movie, at least, and people just melt to skeletons, but there's no actual like cool gory melting effects being created. And somehow this waterbed is like making noises, like it can talk, and it uses the bed sheets as like a lasso to grab people and pull them into the water. It's a waterbed, and it melts them. It's a very cheesy concept, but man, this movie is fucking piss poor. Final dishonorable mention goes to a sequel to a classic, one of the scariest movies of all time, and this sequel, of course, is The Exorcist II, The Heretic. This one tries something different, but fails so goddamn miserably you can't believe your eyes. It's so painfully boring, and everyone in this movie just feels like they're phoning in their performance, like they didn't give a shit. A movie with this cast and this director shouldn't be this bad, but somehow miraculously manages to shock you with just how dreadful it is. It's more of a killer insect movie than an exorcism movie, and doesn't scare you in the slightest. It's not going for scares, it's just being terrible from beginning to end. When we do see possessed Reagan in this movie, it's clearly like a body double because the actress didn't want to be in the makeup again like in part 1, and the sound design and the voice of the demon in this one is different, and the sound design is just nowhere near as effective as it was in the original. This movie only gets points for the somewhat exciting finale and the effects there, but outside of that climax, everything before that is just dog shit. Alright, so before I get into my top 10, let me just shout out some movies that might be worth checking out. The Pack. The residents of vacation spot Seal Island find themselves terrorized by a pack of dogs, the remnants of discarded pets by visiting vacationers. The Child. A newly hired housekeeper in a remote area is alarmed to discover that her boss's 11-year-old daughter is using her supernatural powers to take revenge on the people she holds responsible for her mother's death. Kingdom of the Spiders. Investigating the mysterious deaths of a number of farm animals, vet Rack Hansen discovers that his town lies in the path of hordes of migrating tarantulas. Orca. After witnessing the killing of his mate and offspring at Captain Nolan's hands, a vengeful killer whale goes on a rampage in the fisherman's Newfoundland harbor. The strange possession of Mrs. Oliver. A housewife, tired of her everyday routine, makes changes in her hair, her wardrobe, and her makeup, and begins to take on the personality of a woman who had died 5 years earlier. Day of the Animals. The depletion of the Earth's ozone layer causes animals above the altitude of 5,000 feet to run amok, which is very unfortunate for a group of hikers who get dropped off up there. Audrey Rose. A man is convinced that a young girl is the reincarnation of his own daughter, Audrey Rose, who died in a fiery car accident along with his wife 2 minutes before the girl was born. The Spell. A distraught mother must cope with her embittered daughter who has the ability to cause quote-unquote accidents to happen. And lastly, Shockwaves. Visitors to a remote island discover that a reclusive Nazi has been breeding a group of zombie soldiers. Number 10 is a movie about a killer vehicle, and it's called The Car. This is a killer car movie, of course, that's a bit cheesy, but takes itself seriously and has good characters and great dialogue. The look of the car is kind of cool and menacing. It has no door handles, and the windshield is yellow tinted, and we see like the yellow tinted POV, and the tires are all bulletproof, of course. It has a good cast. You got James Brolin, Ronnie Cox, and little Lindsay Wallace from Halloween. The sinister score in this movie sounded similar-ish to The Shining, which this came before that. I also appreciate the fact that they didn't really waste any time trying to explain like how this car works and what caused it to appear. It's just randomly here now and it's killing people. They make it seem like it's going to go in kind of a cliche direction where they go to the Native Americans who know about the evil and they're going to do some ritual to ban it back to hell, but instead they go in a more fun direction and use dynamite instead. I thought the opening to this movie was wonderful, seeing a bunch of bicyclists get ran off the road like they deserve. Stick to the fucking sidewalk, you jerk. So yeah, The Car is my number 10, and shout out to Liam03 who chose this as his favorite. Next up goes to a movie called Death Steps in the Dark. This is an Italian giallo comedy about, a murder on a train and someone's pinned for the murder and he has to clear his name. He's got this airheaded blonde girlfriend, and it's just a weird, funny giallo that I already did a review for, so if you want to hear my thoughts on this movie, just go check out that review. Number 8 goes to a movie that I believe is a Spanish film, could be wrong, but the title is Alucarda. This is an atmospheric, bizarre possession period piece movie that's too short for its own good. The main two characters in this movie are these two girls, and they seem to develop a very strong bond overnight. And I just never really got too invested in them, and the movie just needed more time in the beginning to set these characters up. And I will be honest, this movie is pretty poorly acted. It's not very suspenseful or anything like that, but there's a great finale where all these priests and nuns they look like mummies a little bit, the way they're dressed. They just burst into flames. There's tons of nudity and an orgy. There's even some girl-on-girl action, and one chick sucks the blood out of a woman's tit. It's definitely a weird movie for sure. That's why it's on my top 10. But it's just, I wish the story was more engaging. The characters could have been better. Like I said, the acting wasn't good, and it wasn't really scary at all. Like, there wasn't a lot of, cool, creepy imagery or anything like that. But the finale was pretty good, and there was some bizarre shit happening in the middle, like the orgy and the stuff I already talked about. So, shout out to Bill Nightbloom, who chose this as his favorite. Number 7 goes to a movie that has two titles, but the one I saw was called Rituals. This is a Canadian survival deliverance type movie, but with even better characters and dialogue. It even kind of plays out like a slasher movie, kind of like The Final Terror has some POV shots from the killer, and we find out at the end that this killer is all deformed like. I'm not sure what the killer's trying to say with all these photographs he keeps leaving behind after each kill, but I just love how he's psychologically tormenting them throughout. First he steals their boots so they have to walk through the woods barefooted, and then he lays bear traps in the creek and then puts one of their friends' severed heads on a spike for them to see when they wake up the next morning. It's intense. He even roasts one of them alive, like that girl in Friday the 13th, the remake, over a fire, which I believe is one of the posters for this movie, and that's a great kill. I thought the characters had a fun rapport with one another, and there was some good tension between them as the film progressed. Unfortunately, though, this transfer I saw was god awful, one of the worst transfers I've ever seen, and there was some repetitious dialogue from one of the characters whose acting was hit and miss. And overall, the movie probably could have benefited from being trimmed a couple of minutes. It's a lot of walking around the woods like Deliverance. So if you don't like movies where you're just seeing a group of guys walking around the woods trying to survive, this isn't going to be your kind of movie. But the characters and the dialogue and just the performances, for the most part, were good enough to keep me engaged from beginning to end. You got Hal Holbrook is in this movie. Number 6 goes to a movie that when I first saw it, it was such a letdown. I did not like it. I have a review where you can go see me make fun of this movie, and that is The Hills Have Eyes. This one gets better on rewatch. It's a simple, dark story about a normal church-going American family versus a cannibalistic family. The trailer scene is iconic. It's the best part of the movie, and it's very brutal and violent for the time, and there's even a character that gets crucified before being burned alive. There's a couple of good jump scares in the movie, and there was a really good disgusting, like, chewed ankle effect. I love the dog Beast seeking revenge for beauty subplot, and you got Michael Berryman in one of his earlier roles, and I like the fact that they're like mimicking animal noises, trying to lure them out. I thought that stuff was kind of creepy, and the music I thought was good too. The family is likable, they're a nice family, but it's just unfortunate that a lot of them are bad actors, and the son is painfully awful, and the sister gets obnoxiously annoying by the end. I didn't care for the dialogue from Papa Jupiter. I thought it was just a little cheesy, and I didn't think it worked. And I didn't really care for his makeup design on his face either. The cannibals in this one are just far less scary than they are in the remake, so that kind of hurts it. And maybe take out some of those goofy shots of them hopping from bush to bush in broad daylight. I do find that the third act starts to lose a little bit of steam, but there's a satisfying resolution with our protagonist getting revenge and saving his baby as it fades to red. And shout out to Hillsborough Strangler, Cry Wolf 854, and Chongo Chalupa, who chose this as their favorites. Number 5 goes to The Sentinel. A freakishly weird haunted house movie with good Dick Smith effects and a tremendous cast. I thought the acting was great, especially from the lead couple in the movie, Chris Sarandon playing the husband. The story is engaging, but a bit convoluted, and there's just weird moments, including a cat birthday party. The last act of this movie is truly bizarre, just filled with tons of actually deformed people for no other reason other than to freak you out. This was directed by Michael Winner. It's a cult classic, but the reason why I can't go higher is because I thought the score could have been better, and there wasn't really a whole lot of suspense or anything all that scary until the third act. Number 4 goes to a Mario Bava film, and that is Shock. This is a psychological haunted house movie starring the beautiful Daria Nicolodi. If you can look past the poor English dubbed voice acting in this film, it's enjoyable. It doesn't have the same like colorful cinematography or gothic atmosphere that Bava's earlier films have. But the atmosphere in this one is still good, and I like the music box melody. Thought that was effective, but it is a bit slow moving at first. But the third act kicks things up a notch, and we get a shocking, bloody throat slit, and we get a scare sequence that seems to be popular nowadays. That this one probably started where somebody's running down a hallway, they go beneath frame, and then when they pop back up, they're a different person. Number 3 goes to a David Cronenberg film, and that is Rabid. It feels like a sequel to Shivers. It's a 28 Days Later-like infection movie and vampire movie blended. The real downfall of this movie is that the main actress is played by a porn star, Marilyn Chambers, who's just not that good of an actress, but at least she takes off her top a lot. And I thought that the characters could have been set up better to where you really connect with them, like Rose, her relationship with other characters. Like, she has this best friend that's introduced like an hour into the movie. Like, I just feel like the characters weren't really all that well developed. the sphincter looking thing on her armpit that she's using to suck the blood out of people. It's a cheesy looking effect. But the movie feels bigger scale, bigger budget than Shivers. There's multiple locations and some action sequences that are fun. Like the best scene in this movie is when she goes to the mall and a mall cop for some reason has like a Tommy gun, standard issue I guess in Canada, and he just starts blasting Santa Claus away. The ending is shockingly kind of downbeat. It's kind of heartbreaking, but not really as effective as it could have been. I think what would have really helped this movie even more is having more attack sequences and more gore in the film. But shout out to Exotic Critter Girl, who chose this as her favorite. Number 2 goes to a movie from the director of Blood Rage, and that is Scalpel. Yet another film from this director that has twin characters. I love the story and how it unfolds, but I just wish there was more excitement and tension towards in the finale. It just didn't build to a place where I wanted it to. I thought the lead two actors did a great job, and there's like this incest, like the dad is like creepily infatuated with his own daughter and wants to be with her. It's just very disturbing. There are some things that don't make much sense, some questionable character decisions in the beginning, and the fact that a bouncer beat a woman like nearly to death and like beyond recognition in public, didn't get arrested for that, makes no sense. Like, that guy should have been charged. I was really liking the chemistry between Jane and the doctor, the dad in the movie, and although the climax isn't all that thrilling, I thought the ending was satisfying. It's happy, and it kind of tied everything up in a nice bow. All right, time for my 3 honorable mentions before we get to my number 1. First honorable mention will be a movie called Demon Seed. This is a sci-fi horror movie with Fritz Weaver and the wonderful Garrett Graham. Basically, it's about AI getting too smart and powerful and wants to impregnate its creator's wife. And for some reason, after she's pregnant, it only takes 1 month instead of 9 months to give birth. And during that whole month, her husband is away at work and never comes home and doesn't find out what exactly is happening at his house until it's conveniently too late. Garrett Graham's death in the movie is like the only kill in the film, and it's very interesting. It's a unique decapitation caused by what looks like a Rubik's snake. The movie couldn't really make my top 10 because it's a little too sci-fi for my liking. I'm not usually into sci-fi movies, and there was some weird trippy visual effects that went on for a little too long in certain sequences. The main actress was okay, not the best, but I like the voice of the computer Proteus and the effects of the cyborg computer baby at the end that's born. The effects there were pretty good. I didn't really need to hear the computer's voice, though, coming out of the little baby's mouth at the end. That was too silly. Next honorable mention will be an anthology movie called The Uncanny. This is a movie where cat scares are justified and part of the story, not just a cheap, lazy trick to scare people like in slashers. This is an uncanny anthology of feline tales where we got some good horror actors, Donald Pleasance, Peter Cushing, you got Samantha Eggers, and you also got John Vernon as well. There's like 3 or 4 stories, and in my opinion, each tale gets marginally better and cheesier. There are some like attack sequences that go on just a little too long, and it's a movie that of course requires you to suspend disbelief because these aren't conventional cats. These are like supernaturally evil cats that can quickly and easily take down people. I thought the music was suspenseful and very similar to Friday the 13th, and we get like a similar kill to the opening of Saw 5, but nowhere near as gory. Overall, it's an okay anthology with a recognizable cast, good atmosphere, but doesn't really deliver much on, the scares or gore. It's PG, and it's not as fun as I would have wanted it. The last honorable mention goes to a popular, unique vampire movie from the one and only George Romero, and that is Martin. This is Romero's unique take on the vampire genre that's more about mental illness than anything else. This is an incredibly low-budget film that has some weak performances in it, but it was cool to see Tom Savini in it, although he's only in it for maybe 2 short scenes. I do like the ending of this movie. It's very shockingly abrupt and showcases some of Tom Savini's effects. I'll be honest, vampire movies just aren't really my thing, although I do appreciate how unique this one is because the guy's not really a vampire, he just seems to think he is. And maybe I would have liked the movie more if I watched it at home instead of at work, because when I watch movies at work, I can only watch them for like a half hour at a time when I'm at break, so I didn't get to really take it all in at once, so maybe that kind of hurt my experience. So maybe on rewatch this will go up a bit, but right now it's sitting here at number 11 on my top 10, so it missed the list. It's number 11, and it's my last honorable mention. But number 1, I knew this was going to be my number 1 before even watching these other 38 movies, and that is Dario Argento's Suspiria. This is my second favorite Argento film. It's damn near flawless, beautiful, and it's just a one-of-a-kind movie, really. And I'm not going to talk about it, really, because I already did. I have a review for this movie, so if you want to hear all my thoughts about this movie, in-depth, spoiler and non-spoiler discussion, check out my review. Also, shout out to users Paul B, Jeanette Spivak, and Tio Martin, PK Scoop, Aiden Vavra, or whatever, Jamarla81, and Mammon, and the Horror Master, and Tio Martin, if I didn't already say your name. There's a lot of people who chose this movie as their favorite, understandably so. It's awesome. So, Suspiria, number 1. That is my top 10 and 3 honorable mentions of 1977. What are your favorite movies from 1977? Your top 10, top 5, or just your number 1? Let me know. What's the worst movie you saw from 1977? Any other movies I watched that I did not talk about already in this review, or top 10, I will let you know in the info box below all the other movies I watched. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this. If you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.